morning children. In previous class we discussed about friction. What is friction and examples of friction in our daily life. In today's class we learn about different types of friction. First is static friction. Static friction is the friction which comes into play when surfaces of the objects are at rest relative to each other, even there is an external force acted upon. That means when you are trying to push an object, it is not moving. That is nothing but static friction. Like, I'll give one example. Suppose you want to move a stationary body. That means the body which is at rest. You can say a heavy cupboard, you can say a heavy sofa. You can take that example. What happens when you give an initial push? Nothing happens. Correct, children? The body does not move even though you applied a lot of force. Why do you think the body does not move? What is the reason behind that? Simple, students, because of static friction. When you apply some force from opposite direction, also force is applicable. That is nothing but friction force. But completely the object is not moving. It is not changing its position. That is nothing but static friction. The force that you applied is balanced or equal by a frictional force by the surface, and this force is applied in the direction opposite to your force. Such type of forces are called static friction force. That means whatever force you are applying, suppose you are applying 10 Newton force. So you will apply in one direction, from opposite direction frictional force is applicable. If that force also n Newton only, that means the object does not change its position because both forces are balanced or equal. Such type of friction force is called as static force. It is also called as self-adjusting force. As you increase the magnitude of pushing force, the force of static friction also increase. Suppose now you are trying to apply little more force. Suppose you are applying to 20 newtons. So frictional force or static frictional force also will be 20 Newton. So still the object will not move. That means still the both forces are balanced, both forces are equal. At last, if you apply your more force of you increase your pushing force, then the body starts moving. Why do you think that the body start moving? Because this block starts moving because you are applying more force. Suppose you are applying 35 Newton force. So from opposite direction, static friction force is applying 34 or 33 Newton force. Here the equation is not balanced. Both are not equal. That's why the object starts moving. When the object starts moving, that means here static friction force ends and sliding friction force started. Are you getting my point, children? When the object start moving, that movement is nothing but sliding. Sliding friction is also called as kinetic friction. What is this friction? Sliding friction is the friction which comes into play when the surface of one object moves relative to the surface of another object. That means, suppose if you ever pushed a heavy body on the floor, you will realize that pushing it is little easier when it is in motion. That means when the object is in motion, it is easier to you to push that object because the sliding friction is lesser than the static friction. That means static friction is more than the sliding friction. Still friction will be there in that object, but it is less. That's why the object is moving. That is nothing but, the type of friction is nothing but sliding friction. And always remember, children, force of sliding friction is equal to constant pull. Both will be equal and it is less than the static friction. Am I clear, children? So today's homework, read your textbook, physics textbook, page number 20 and 21. Then give few examples for sliding friction. Second question, friction is both good and evil. Explain with examples. Clear?